Oh hi, you're looking tall today. Today we're going to be talking about this. It's virtual reality. Now if you've never used one of these before, you probably think it looks pretty stupid, right? You strap this toaster to your face and then you just fall over things in your bedroom. But that's because the magic of virtual reality doesn't come from viewing it from the outside. But instead, the magic of virtual reality is when you step onto the inside. Now, most of you watching this video, I'm pretty sure, have never explored how virtual reality can be used to investigate human behavior. So if that's the case, then listen up, because virtual reality really is the future of behavioral science. Hi, Dr. Mar Gonzalez. Can you introduce yourself to my audience, please?
Oh, sure. So I'm Mar Gonzalez Franco. I work at Microsoft Research, where I'm trying to spearhead a lot of tools for people to use to kind of democratize the use of virtual reality in academia, mostly like psychologists be able to use virtual reality for their experiments. You know, trying to bring the wide spectrum of academia to use virtual reality as a tool for their experiments.
This is my Quest 2. It was my first virtual reality headset that I ever bought, and I found it incredibly immersive. The experience was very immersive. And what surprised me was that it was so immersive despite the graphics not looking super realistic, like not super photorealistic, but I still felt like I was in that physical location. So I guess my question is, how does virtual reality trick our brain into thinking we're really there?
Yeah, it's very interesting, right? The effect in virtual reality, you experience this presence illusion that has these two major parts. One is this plausibility illusion, in which you start believing that things that are happening could be real, and then the other is this place illusion, which is this idea that I'm really here.
What things can developers do to increase the presence illusion that you're talking about?
I think here is an area of exploration in itself. Things that we're finding is natural interactions. For example, when avatars start interacting with you, that starts being very interesting for social experiments, for example, and people behave realistically. There was a very famous experiment, and it was a virtual pit, a free fall in front of you, and of course, there was no free fall in the reality, only in the virtual world. But participants experience super increased heart rate as they reach the edge. And when they were asked to cross to the other side, they all went, you know, through the side of, nobody crossed through the hole, despite the hole was virtual. And that really shows you that once people start experiencing this presence illusion, and that happens almost instantaneously as you enter the virtual environment, what happens is that they behave realistically. And that is great for experimentation, because there are things that you want to recreate that would be almost impossible in reality. And in virtual reality, you can do it. And you are almost guaranteed that you'll have similar responses to what people would have had in reality.
Yeah, and I think that's where it gets really interesting for behavioral scientists like myself and social psychologists, because it'd be interesting if we could do experiments completely in virtual reality to see how people really behave. How well does someone's behavior in virtual reality map onto how they would behave in real life, do you think?
I mean, we've done experiments there, and other people have also done experiments, but I want to put an example because we replicated the Milgram experiment on obedience to authority, which has been, something that has been very interesting for social psychologists. And it's also one of these experiments you cannot do in reality, but in virtual reality, if you're harming an avatar, there is no deception, right? Like it's clear that you're not really harming a person, and that changes completely the paradigm. But what we found is similar rates on adherence to the authority figure and to the experimentation, and we try to replicate very similarly using the same script, and what we find is similar, right? Like the points in which people start hesitating, the points in which people decide not to continue, etc., which you would think, oh, if you're just in a game, you would just continue, right? And we were able to prime people before the experiment, and that could really have an effect, right? Like if you ask them like things like, oh, do you believe in science, and do you think it's good for science to progress, and then you prime them into really being committed that they want to make science better, and then they will go further than people who are, you're priming them for human rights and these type of things before the experiment. So I think this whole idea that you have a experimental setup that is exactly the same for every participant, and then you can do modifications, creates a very stable petri dish for social psychology.
So do you think that virtual reality could be or should be used more in social psychological research for that reason?
So I think for social psychology, we're going to the same type of situation in which we're going to be able to do things that you cannot do in reality. Like, oh, you want to study how bystander effect works, for example, in a bar fight. And then you can basically not go to a bar and start a fight and start observing how people will behave, right? So there are ways that you can do that in virtual reality. The challenge is it's very hard to do it, right? Like you need to have a computer science degree. My Milgram experiment took me 6 months to do it. I'm a computer scientist. I was in one of the best departments of computer science in the United Kingdom when I did that. And that's not for everyone, right? So that is the gap that I've been trying to bridge over the last couple of years. And this year, it culminated with a series of libraries that I've been releasing for free and public use. And that includes libraries of avatars, which for social psychology is critical. You need to have interaction with other people, right? And libraries to animate them, to just be yourself in front of a camera, record yourself, super easy, right? Like you were recording the audio of a microphone, similar. The reason why I'm trying to reach also to social psychologists and this community, because I think now they can build on their own. And another thing that I'm trying to emphasize a lot is that I'm here and I'm happy to help people to start working with these tools, right? Because the first time is a bit challenging, but I think it should be complete change, right? Like moving from no wheel to the wheel, or this type of change for experimentation in social psychology.
Yeah, I actually totally agree, and I think that it could be a really exciting like new frontier for social psychology research.
I remember an experiment by Sylvia Pan. Yeah, she was doing this experiment similar to, would you, derail the train and kill one, or and those are typically questionnaires, and you can cheat on a questionnaire, right?
Yeah,
like
definitely.
you have more time to think, or I mean, you would eventually say whatever your ethics push you, and be honest about it. But the difference is, if you had to do it, how long would it take, right, for you to react?
Yeah.
So reaction times, which is something that in social psychology has not really been explored, but could really tell you a lot about the personality even, or I think all of these timings and things are some things that are very interesting to be explored in virtual reality. So if you take one of these questionnaires, you put it inside of virtual reality, you need to pull from here whenever this reaches that. She had an experiment in which there was a shooting in a museum, and you were an operator of an elevator. Okay, so you were just bringing people up to the first level, to the second level, and you're doing that, and it becomes very monotonous. All of a sudden, one of these persons starts a shooting, and it's on the elevator, right? So you can move him down or keep him up. If you move him down, you'll kill that one person, but up there are four.
Right.
So, you would naturally move him down, but how long would it take you? I remember Scotland Yard was super interested on this work, right? Because if you're going to test for people's ability to respond to critical events, you want to know how fast they think also. And I think all that part has not been easily explored in social psychology. And I think with avatars, we can do much more. And by the way, her avatars were just stick figures, right? So
Right.
she was trying to avoid any sort of stereotyping or, these are just stick figures. So I think when it comes to realism, you can play in both ways. Like um, the fact that you have this dynamic range, which in reality you don't have, it's very useful also. How much realism you want. Do you want different races? It becomes a completely different experiment, right? And that's why I'm saying that within the same experiment, you can change the factors and be sure you only change that one factor. Because that's one of my concerns in general is experiments where you don't know which, the causality of things, and that becomes a very big problem. If you have a virtual replica of a real thing, you could be testing how good your signals and systems inside there. It's kind of beyond social psychology. Also, it's on the application of social psychology, like test whether Paddington Station is well signaled to exit an emergency, right? Would people follow the exit signs or just follow where the crowd goes? And I think all of these possibilities are very interesting to social psychologists, especially because I think there is a struggle to always, when you're doing some sort of basic research, for people to understand why is this applicable, and you're like, well, we can make it completely applicable. We're gonna make a replica and we're gonna test how people cannot exit this train station.
I guess that opens things up to outside of the world of academia, right? Because then you can push this into the world of business or in government policy, and let's see how people really behave in what we're designing, right?
I think it's also very important because we're building these simulations and these worlds, and it's super detached from the human. Even like self-driving cars, they're being trained with simulations where there are no crowds or no humans, and you're like, something sounds weird because in the real world there are humans. So I think the social psychologists can bring that edge of research there to applications that are going to be critical in the next decades.
Where can people find you or contact you if they want to?
I have a public website. I also post the latest there. I'm also on Twitter, Mar. And yeah, just ping me if you're interested on working on using the libraries I've been releasing or doing some other psychological type of experiments.
Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed today's video, maybe learned something new. If you did, can you give this video a thumbs up because it really helps me out? And also make sure that you're subscribed and you have that notification bell rang down below so that you don't miss out on all of the latest behavioral science content. Alright, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.